Hello everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on Python for data analysis. My name is Eugene Foley, and I will be your tutor for these sessions. Um, we're going to start with Python basics, and that's going to be the scope of this course. And we're going to look first at how to run Python code. We're going to download Anaconda, which is one of the most popular data science platforms, and use the Jupyter Notebooks, which we'll use to run, all the Python code for our data analysis. Another option is to use Google Colab. It also has notebooks where you can run, your Python code. Then the next thing we'll look at is Python data types and other Python objects. And so we'll go through the very basics like strings, integers, and then look at things like lists, dictionaries, and sets. And then we'll look at some Python methods, functions, and libraries. And as we go on, I'll explain into more detail what each of them mean. The next thing I'll look at is manipulating and visualizing data using Python. And so we're going to use the Pandas library in Python heavily for this. And then we'll use some other visualization libraries like Matplotlib and Seaborn to be able to visualize the data that we're looking at. Another thing we'll look at will be some exploratory data analysis using Python. So we'll go through about maybe a couple of examples, one or two or three of them that would, put to work the concepts that we've learned. So one thing that I want to note is that the goal of this training is not to make you an expert in Python. Python is, an extremely versatile programming language. It's used heavily in software development, and it's one of the go-to languages for data science, data analysis, machine learning, uh, and, things of that sort. But then this course will give you, the foundations to be able to carry out routine tasks. So if you are a heavy Excel user or SQL user, this tutorial will introduce you to Python, for carrying out some of the basic tasks that you, or the routine tasks that you do in those other programs. And this is also introducing the beginner programmer to, Python, but geared specifically towards data analysis. All right, so let's jump in to, all right, so let's go straight into running Python code. And the first thing we're going to do is to look at, how to install Anaconda. And so you can go on your browser to Anaconda download, and then, if you are interested, you can spend some time reading uh, more about this platform. What I'm going to do is go to products, the individual edition, and then look at download. And so depending on your operating system, you can download, which um, of the installers make sense for you. And so I've already downloaded, Anaconda over here. And so I'm going to show that on my screen right now. So Anaconda has, several different programs that you can launch for data analysis and data science. And so what we're going to use mainly is the Jupyter Notebook. And what I like to use is the Jupyter Lab, which contains a Jupyter Notebook, but has, some more um, tools in there that can be used for data analysis. And so I'm going to hit launch, and that should open a Jupyter Lab for me. And so this is how the Jupyter Lab looks like. Over here, we have a Jupyter Notebook. Um, this is an example that we'll be going through, later in the course, which shows some hospital appointment data. But then just a quick run through. This is a Jupyter Notebook. Um, the reason I like Jupyter Labs is that you can actually open, your data set in here and be able to do, a lot of initial exploration of your data set within the same environment. Um, all right, so we're going to create a new Jupyter Notebook. And so we hit the plus button here and then hit on Notebook Python 3. All right, so what are Python notebooks? So this notebook is, like I said earlier, a popular tool for performing data analysis in Python. And they can also be used for other programming languages. Now, notebooks are very useful because they allow you to write, code and view the results, in line. So I'm just printing, for example, hello world, and you're able to see the results in line. Now, each of the code is written in these cells, which are like this. Each of the input blocks here is known as a cell, and the cell makes it easy for you to read your code in a step-by-step process, when you're doing like your data analysis. So another example that we can do here is, we can do a basic computation. So let's say we assign A equal to 6, B equal to 3, and then we want to multiply A times B. And so that gives us our result in line. And so to be able to run code in a cell, what you need to do is you write your Python code. For example, this is a string, and then you press Control and Enter if you're using a Windows machine, or Command Return or Control Return if you're using a Mac, and then that should give you, that should run the code in a cell. Now, cells are able to also, um, they have different types. So you have a code cell, you have a markdown cell, or you have a raw cell. So the markdown allows you to make notes. So for example, this is a markdown cell. And so you can put headers and be able to write a nice report, for your data analysis. So this is one of the things that makes notebooks very popular for data analysis. Great. So we're going to go straight into looking at the different data types that we talked about earlier. And so we're going to look at strings, integers, floats, Booleans, and then lists, dictionaries, and sets. And so one thing you need to know is that in Python, everything is an object. And that means that, for every line of code that we run, the result will be some kind of object. All right. And so let's start with the string. And so I'm going to, a string is defined with either a single quotes or a double quotes. And so if you notice what I did here, I put this pound or hash sign, and that tells the code cell that this is a comment. And so it's not going to run this code. it's just going to treat it as, a comment. So this is a comment, and it will be interpreted as such. So this line is not going to be run by the Python interpreter. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to define an empty string and assign it to this variable that I'm calling empty string. And so the empty string is going to be the name of that object that is created whenever I run this cell. And so I press shift and enter, and then that runs the cell. And so when I do a print, which is one of Python's built-in functions, and I do empty string, and I press shift and enter, it's an empty string. So there's pretty much no result over there. Now, there's another built-in function that can show you what data type, a particular variable is. And the name of that function is type. And so what we can do here is we can look at a type of empty string, and that gives us str, which represents a string. Another way that we can define a string is, like I said, with a single or the double quotes. And so we can just type here, hello from Dallas, Texas. And when we run this piece of code, it gives us, hello from Dallas, Texas as the output. We can assign that to a variable. So my first string is equal to hello from, if you're in Accra, Ghana. And then what we can do is we can print my first string, and it gives you the result, hello from Accra, Ghana. Now we can do the same thing with the double quotes. So my first string in double quotes is equal to hello from Accra, Ghana. And we can print. Now this is a really long name. So what you can do is that when you start typing, you can press tab. And when you press tab, it would show you, you know, the rest of the string that you can autocomplete so that you don't have to type the whole thing. When you run this, you have hello from Accra, Ghana as, your first string in double quotes. So what I'll suggest is you can go ahead and, pause the video and do some practice on your own. Just assigning labels or variables to these strings or these objects, and then learning how to print stuff out in Python. So congratulations, you're running your first, few lines of Python code. And this might seem basic, but this is a really important step, in your journey as a data scientist, as a data analyst. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is integers. So I'm going to change this to a markdown cell so this can be a header. So when I run it, it gives me a header integers. So my first integer is equal to 1. Now you realize that this doesn't have any single or double quotes. If we put single or double quotes around this, my first integer is going to become a string. But then for an integer, we don't put any quotes around it. And so my first integer, it has the int data type. Now imagine we did my first integer string and we put it in single or double quotes, the type of my first integer string will be a string data type. And so you have to take note of this. Now, another thing that I didn't mention is if you want to delete a cell, what you can do is you can click on the side of the cell and then press D twice, and that deletes the cell. So you press D, the letter D for dog, twice, and then that will delete a cell. All right. The next thing that we can look at is a floating point number, which has decimals attached to it. So what we can do here is floating floats, and then we can change the cell to a markdown. And so my first float is equal to 1.1. And so when we look at the type of my first float, it gives us a floating point number. And so I think you probably are getting, the drift or the hang of all of this right now. We can look at the Boolean. All right, so we're going to look at Booleans, and Boolean is either a true or a false. And so my first Boolean is equal to, for example, true. And so if we look at the type of my first Boolean, it's a bool, which is a Boolean data type. My second Boolean is equal to false. If we look at the type of my second Boolean, it's a Boolean data type. So this brings us to the end of the basic data types. The next thing that we'll be looking at is Python lists, dictionaries, and sets.
All right, so welcome back. We're going to start looking at the next type of Python objects, which are called lists. And so a list, like the name implies, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of Python objects. And so it's a kind of object that can contain other objects. And so we can call it a container of other objects. Um, in lists, some of the characteristics are that the order of the list stays the same once you type it in, and then you can access um, a list by its index. So I will show you some examples of how to find the index of a list and how to access items by their indices. And so let's type in a header here for lists, and then we can make it a markdown cell. So a shortcut is you can press the escape button and then press M. M would change the cell to a markdown cell. And so a list is defined by a square bracket. And so we can have, you know, countries equal to a square bracket. And then we can put the names of, different countries inside the list. So America, United States, Canada, um, South Africa. And then one more, which is, maybe Argentina. And so we press shift and enter, and that runs the code for us. And so what we can do is we can do what we've been doing in the previous exercises, that is checking the type of the variable, and it's a list. Now, what we can do here is lists, you're able to check the certain attributes of a list. And so one thing that we can do is we can check the length of a list. And that's done by doing the len function. And so len of countries will give you 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the other thing that we need to do is whenever you want to access maybe one of the elements of a list, Lists are zero indexed objects. And what that means is that we start counting from zero. And so that means that Ghana would be index 0, United States would be index 1, Canada index 2, South Africa index 3, and then Argentina will be index 4. And so the way to do it is pretty simple. So you type the list name, a square bracket, and then the index number. So index 0, what we expect from this should be Ghana. And so it gives us Ghana. Another thing you can do is you can type print countries, and then you index 0. And so that gives you Ghana without the quotation marks. And so if we do index 1, it gives us United States. Index 2 gives us Canada. And then another thing that we can do is we can go from back all the way to the front, and those are negative indices. And so if we do countries -1, starting from here, -1 will give us the last one, which is Argentina. If we did print, say, countries -3, it would be -1, -2, and -3. So that should give us Canada, and so on and so forth. And so this is something that you should be able to practice. And so what I would suggest is if you can write, the Python code to create the list countries, and then be able to find the length of the list and then access each one of the elements in the list based on its index number. Now you might ask, what if we put in an index which is greater than the length of the list? So let's say, for instance, we do print countries and we try and index 6. It gives us an index error, and it says the list index is out of range. So meaning, it's only 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so the list index of 6 is out of the range. All right, great. So the next data type that we're going to look at is dictionaries. So let me type dictionaries here. And dictionaries are a list of definitions that correspond to a unique term. And so, if you know what a dictionary looks like, you look inside a dictionary for certain words, and each word is unique, and then it gives you the definitions of those words. So it's the same thing, or the same concept in Python. And so dictionaries are not ordered like lists, and then dictionary values are accessed by keys. So the key of the dictionary, so for example, if you open your dictionary, you're looking for the word apple, apple will be the key, and then the definition of apple in the dictionary will be, the value that the dictionary holds. And so what we're gonna do is create what I would call country population. And we're going to use the countries that we used in for our list to, create the population, to give the population of each of those countries. So the first one is Ghana. And the population of Ghana currently is, just a second while I pull that up. It's 30.42 million according to the World Bank. So let's put 30.42,000. Yeah, I think that's right. Well, 10 needs to go. Yep, and that's the population of Ghana. And then the next thing that we would do is you put a comma there. And so this is one element, the key, which is Ghana, and then the value, which is, 30.42 million. So that forms what we call a key value pair. The next country was the United States. And then the colon. So the US population is 328.2 million. So 328,200,000. So that's the population of the US. Then a comma. Then the other country that we put there was Canada. So Canada's population is, let me check that real quick, 37.59 million. So 37590000, and then a comma, and then the other country that we did was South Africa. And so South Africa has a population of 58.56 million, and all these are 2019 values. 58560000, and then a comma, and then finally we have Argentina. And Argentina's population will be 44.94 million. All right, so once we're done with this, we can press Shift and Enter, and then we can check the type of country population, which is a dictionary. And so how do we access values in a dictionary? We access values in a dictionary by using their key. And so, for example, if we do country population, instead of the index being 0, 1, 2, or 3 like we did for the list, we can put Ghana here. And what it should, the result that it should give us is the population of Ghana. Now, we can write something like this. Say we want to print a string. The population of Ghana is, and then we can put a comma here, country population, and then Ghana. So that will print the population of Ghana is 30,420,000. Another way that we can print the population of Ghana is to use what's called format. And so we can do the population of Ghana is and put curly brackets, and then dot format, and put country population Ghana. And so I know that's a lot, but then you can spend some time and then, look at this piece of code or this piece of code to understand, what's happening here. So essentially what this is doing is these curly brackets is saying that, hey, whatever is in format, replace country population Ghana by that. And so later in this course, when we look at the methods of different objects, we'll be able to talk, more into detail about this kind of notation. But I just wanted to introduce it here so that you have an idea of some of the things that we'll be seeing, going forward. All right, perfect. So what if we wanted to, change some values in our dictionary and in our list? So for example, let's say we put the population of Ghana wrongly, and we wanted to change that population number to something else, maybe to like 10 million or something. What we can do is we have the okay, I'm spelling it wrongly here. So country population first, let's print it out. And so we have Ghana, United States, Canada, South Africa, and Argentina. So that's our dictionary. Now, if we wanted to change a value in our dictionary, what we would do is country population, and then we look for the key, and then we do an equal to. So that means that we are assigning a new value to this particular key. So this one I'm assigning 31 million. And so when I print country population again, now it gives me 31 million. Now the thing about dictionaries is that the keys are unique. So for example, in your dictionary, you should not be able to have for like two keys that are the same, like Ghana and Ghana, be unique. All right, great. So let's do the same for our list. So we have our list, which is countries. So if we do countries and we say we wanted to change this to maybe Zimbabwe, and then we went and run countries, so we've changed Ghana to Zimbabwe. And so for a list, I mean, you can change, different indices or different objects in the list to something different. Now, what if we wanted to add to this list? For example, we had Zimbabwe there, but then we want to add, Ghana to the end of this list. And so what we can do is we can use the list method called append, and then we can add Ghana to it. Now we'll talk more about these methods in the next few lessons, but like I said, I'll be introducing certain concepts here which we would get to explain into more detail in the next or future lessons. And so when we look at countries, we see Ghana is at the end. Now, what about adding stuff or adding values to a dictionary? It's pretty simple. So let's say we wanted to add Zimbabwe's population to our dictionary, which has the country's populations. And so what we'll need to do is we need to type, so our country population, we have our dictionary here. And so our country population, we put a new key in there, which is Zimbabwe. And then we assign the population, which is 14.65 million. And that will give us a new entry into our country's population dictionary. All right. Great. So the next thing we're going to do is comparing values in our dictionary. So this will come in handy, especially when we are doing or filtering, data sets based on certain conditions. And so to compare two different values, we use the, and I'll put in a comment here, the equality operator. And so this will check if what's on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side are the same and output a Boolean, which is either true or false. And then if you want to check if something is not equal to, you can use the exclamation sign equal to. And so what we can say is, let's check if country population of Ghana is equal to 31 million. And so that's true because that's what is in here. But if we do country population of Ghana is not equal to 31 million, can you guess what the answer will be? Yes, it's false. Now imagine we took country population of Ghana and we are trying to find out if that's equal to 32 million. That is definitely false. But then if we did country population of Ghana, and that's equal to 32 mil, that's not equal to 32 million. That is definitely true. And so another thing that we can do is for our list, which was the countries, a thing we can do is that we can find out if is the length of countries equal to 5. Well, that's false because there are how many? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so length of countries is equal to 6. So that is true. And so this is a way to, compare two different values. And like I said, this will come in handy a lot when we have to do some filtering of our data sources based on certain conditions. And so we've come to the end of the very first part of this tutorial, and we looked at very basic Python objects: strings, integers, floats, booleans, lists, and dictionaries. And then we looked at how to change certain values in the dictionaries and lists, and we looked at comparing values in dictionaries and lists. And so I would suggest that you go ahead and practice on your own. Most of this tutorial, the structure is based on a tutorial by Mode, M-O-D-E, Analytics. And so they have a very good introductory tutorial on mode.com, their Python tutorial. And you can go in there and practice as much as possible. Another place you can go to is W3 Schools. And so W3 Schools, let me pull it up. You can type W3 Schools Python, and then there's a lot of Python exercises that you can go through to get started. So we have Python strings, for example. And so this is kind of like what we've done. And in here, you can, try it yourself. It opens something like kind of like a notebook for you, and you can run code in here to practice by yourself. Something that you could also do is you could open two windows, and then inside your Jupyter Notebook, you can type the code that they have here in here and then use that to practice. So very, very important. You've got to practice, how to work with Python. It's a language that you get through a lot of practice. So the next time that we meet, we're going to take a look at some Python methods, functions, and then how to import different libraries into our workspace. And then we'll get our feet wet with some Pandas data framework. So that's where the bulk of the work is going to be for data analysis. We're going to use the Pandas data frame a lot. And so get ready. This is going to be a lot more exciting than this. This is just the groundwork that we have to lay before we go deeper into doing some proper exploratory data analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave me some feedback. If this was going at a fast pace or a very slow pace, let me know so that I'll be able to adjust the pace in subsequent videos. And if you found it useful, just let me know. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I should be able to help out. So with that, have a great day, and I will speak to you all again soon.